second day of our South Carolina road trip, we got up nice and early in order to go visit the Congaree National Park. Here we go. Day. It's an exciting day because we're going to go check out a brand new national park. Going to go visit Congaree. From the state park here, it says it's 35 miles and it should take us about 45 minutes. Not that bad. We'll be there soon. So let's go check this out. All right. So Congaree is fairly young as far as national parks go. It was upgraded from a national monument to national park status in 2003. The park serves to protect 26,276 acres of floodplain and old-growth forest. Congaree National Park is located about 18 miles southeast of the capital city of Columbia. If you were to look at the map of South Carolina, the park is pretty much located directly in the center. Although Congaree is located in a part of the country with relatively few national parks, it is one of the lesser visited parks. I think that's probably because it lacks some of the grandeur that you see in some of the other parks, particularly those that you find out west. But I think that people are probably too quick to write this park off. Plus, there's no entrance fee, and that definitely sweetens the pot if you ask me. The campgrounds only allow for tent camping, so if you have an RV, you gotta look somewhere else to stay. We're staying at Poinsett State Park, which worked out well because it allowed us to visit a really cool state park that we otherwise probably would have overlooked. Of course, you gotta start at the visitor center. I was anxious to get here and check out the mosquito meter, which I'd heard about. It's pretty famous. It lets you know how bad the mosquitoes are on any given day. On this day, we're very lucky in that we got the lowest possible ranking at the number 1, all clear. The scale goes all the way up to war zone. I can imagine it gets pretty bad when you have that type of situation. Probably not even worth visiting on those days. The gift shop was pretty standard. We picked up our souvenirs and grabbed our stamps. Unfortunately, the exhibits and film were not showing on that day. I think that the film would have had some really good information, so I was a little bit disappointed about that, but that's okay. There was a volunteer that gave us a lot of good information and recommendations for the trails and things to do, so we were good to go. The most popular thing to do at the park is the self-guided Boardwalk trail. It's a 2.6 mile round trip that takes about 60 to 80 minutes and it starts right outside of the visitor center. The trail guide highlights 20 points of interest along the trail, the first of which is an American beech tree thought to be over 100 years old. I don't know how, but I couldn't find the first stop. How it's possible is just beyond me, but it'll give me something to look forward to the next trip. What we're seeing here is called Dorovan muck, at least I think that's how you pronounce it. It's really 8 feet of mud. That's a lot of mud, but what it does is it filters water and maintains the health of the floodplain. An unusual thing about the bald cypress tree is that they produce these things that they call knees that come up from the roots of the tree. They're not really sure what they do, but they think it provides extra structural support during floods. They remind me of stalagmites, and they're pretty cool. Actually, one of my favorite things to see. Next, we see what are called water tupelos, which dominate the landscape here, and they're identified by their swollen trunks. These trees only grow where the water is plentiful. The moss on the bottom sort of shows the high water mark for previous flooding. Throughout the park you'll see what are called cane brakes, which are a dense growth of this plant called the switch cane, which looks like bamboo but it's most closely related to sugar cane. The park has a good trail network with plenty of mileage, but you can also leave the trail and just venture out into the wilderness. I learned a lot of new terminology on this trail, and one of those is a snag, which refers to a standing dead tree. There's a snag just left of center right there. We saw tons of caterpillars along the trail. This is probably normal for mid-May. Much of the park is old-growth forest, and what this means is that with the tall trees, fewer plants can grow in the low sunlight on the floor, which allows you to observe an open view into the forest. The trees here average over 130 feet in height, which makes Congaree one of the tallest deciduous forests in the world. This is due to the rich soil, frequent flooding, and a long growing season. This low area here is called a gut. Guts and sloughs are low channels in the forest that disperse water throughout the floodplain when the Congaree River floods. This fallen pine here was 2 centuries old when Hurricane Hugo took it down in 1989. This tree here is what's called a loblolly pine. This particular tree is over 150 feet tall and is a former state champion. The loblolly pines are the tallest trees in South Carolina. One of the coolest things that happened is Dawn was actually able to spot an alligator swimming out in the middle of Weston Lake. I had no idea how she saw it. I never could have. It was a good eye. Here we chose to split the Boardwalk trail in half and leave it to do the Weston Lake loop, making our hike almost like a figure 8 type pattern. While they call it the Weston Lake Loop, it's not really a loop. It actually connects to another trail called the Sim Trail, and that's what brings you back to the Boardwalk, so I don't know where they got loop from. But all in all, the full figure 8 pattern is about a 5-mile hike. None of the hike is really difficult, but once you leave the Boardwalk, there are some muddy areas and some down trees that you either have to go over or around. The trees are enormous and they're impressive when they're standing tall, but in a way, when they're down on the ground and you're at their level, you can get a better sense for how big these things actually are. They were pretty right on the money with the mosquito conditions, and we weren't bothered all that much, although at this particular spot I was kind of eaten up a little bit. All in all, I think that mid-May is probably a great time to visit this park. There are definitely snakes in the area. In fact, we heard a volunteer telling a lady about them. He actually made her kind of nervous to the point where she didn't want to come out. We didn't encounter any in the ground, but I did see one swimming in the water. Unfortunately, when I went to snap a pic, he saw me and he dipped out quick. Here's another good example of a snag. You can see the holes here where the woodpecker tried to find a snack. I can't appreciate why people consider this park to be underwhelming, especially in comparison with some other national parks. That said, There's stuff here that I don't generally see daily or any kind of regular basis, so for me, I thought it was actually really cool to see this kind of terrain. And here we are jumping back on the boardwalk loop. There's a walkway that takes you out to some good view of Weston Lake. Now Weston Lake is an oxbow lake. What that means is the river changed courses, and as that happened, this lake was formed and developed. Here's some turtles swimming within the lake. Pretty sweet. In addition to hiking, the other big thing to do in the park is canoeing or kayaking. Now we didn't book anything like that, so we wouldn't be doing that today, but that gives us something to look forward to for a future visit. Alright guys, so we had a fun time hiking those trails at the Congaree National Park. All in all, it's about 5 miles. Nice easy hike. They were good trails, very interesting. We had a great time. I think one day is enough for Congaree National Park. It gives you a good cross section of everything there is to see. Some good wildlife. We learned a lot about the unique ecosystem, of the floodplains. But we're done here for the day, so we're going to move on. We passed a sign for a town nearby called Sumter, and they have some kind of historic district, and we did a quick Google, and it looks worth checking out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to drive out here and see what Sumter, South Carolina is all about. We did learn something interesting at the park. You may have noticed on the way in there's a sign saying they closed the gate at 4 p.m. and only admittance was for people that were attending events. So on the way out, we asked the guy there, I don't think he was a ranger, I think he was a volunteer, we asked him what the event was. Turns out there is no event tonight. Congaree is one of those areas where they have the synchronous Firefly event where all the fireflies will illuminate at the same time for whatever reason. I think it's kind of a mystery why they do that. It's part of their mating ritual, and they do allow people to come in and see that at parts, but they actually close it at 4 o'clock for the rest of this month to allow them to go about their mating rituals with less disturbance from less visitors. So that's why it's closed. It's not due to an event, it's to allow the fireflies to mate. Now later in the month, I think he said there's a couple weeks on the weekends, they will allow people to come in to view the synchronous fireflies, but that's only through lottery, and that lottery happened 2 months ago. So, it's too late to get in on that action for 2022, but pretty cool to know they're willing to close the park to visitors to give the animals time to do what they need to do. It takes about 30 minutes to get to Sumter from Congaree National Park. Sumter is home to the Shaw Air Force Base. We drove to the historic area, which seemed pretty decent, but unfortunately we learned that pretty much everything in this town is closed on Sundays. I'm not sure if that's common for South Carolina or if it's just this place, but literally there was nothing open in the historic section. We started researching and looking for things to do around Sumter, and then we struck gold when we found Swan Lake Iris Gardens. This is a public park which is actually open on Sundays and was very highly rated. Unfortunately, the visitor center is closed on Sundays, so we didn't get to check that out, but that's okay. We headed straight into the park. The park is free to enjoy, which is definitely always pretty cool, but I gotta say, the place was very well maintained and very well taken care of, and I actually would have been happy to pay for it. Of course, the swans give the park its name, and they're kind of the main attraction. It's actually the only park in the United States that has all 8 species of swan. There's some really cool scenery to check out around the lake. something I'd never seen before. I guess that's how a swan takes a nap. The gardens within the park are very nice and very well taken care of. In fact, if there were no swans and there was no lake, I'd still come here just to see the gardens. All in all, I was very glad that we came and found this place. I would recommend if you're visiting Congaree National Park and you got some extra time, definitely take the drive out to Sumter and check out the Swan Lake Iris Gardens. It's totally worth it. Well, it's time to get back on the road and make our way to our campsite at Poinsett State Park. I've really enjoyed our time spent here in central South Carolina. This is one area that I've never really spent any time, so it's nice to check out a new region of the country. It's definitely got its own unique vibe and feel and look. Arriving back at our campsite, we settled into our nightly routine. We really did enjoy our time at the Congaree National Park. If you visited the park, please comment below and share your experiences and what you thought about it. We'd love to hear your opinion on that. Many people think Congaree is lame or it sucks or it's not worth it. We'd like to know if you guys agree or if you think that's wrong. Jump in the comments and let us know. Alright, so we're all hooked up, ready to go here. It's just a short stop, short visit here in Poinsett State Park and Congaree National Park. And I'm gonna get up and go early tomorrow morning, which is why we got hooked up. Gonna go to bed early because we really got to get up early. Around 3:30 is when the alarm's gonna go off. So, yeah, it's gonna be an early night. We've already eaten, fire's burning down. Just gonna have a quick shower and then go to bed soon. But looking forward to more stuff tomorrow. So, alright, check you later. We need to go to bed early in order to wake up early to make our way in the morning to Florence, South Carolina for the grand opening of Buc-ee's. Guys, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this at all, please give me that thumbs up and think about subscribing if you want to see what's next. There is plenty more to come because camps like us are born to camp. Later.